All right, everyone. Welcome once again on this Tuesday. I keep saying Tuesday, and then I just thought to myself, is it really Tuesday? And it sure is, because that's when we have Produce Spotlight, okay? And on that note, since we have been doing Produce Spotlight for quite a few years now, okay? It's been one of our core classes that we've done over the years. We try to jazz it up from time to time with different themes. And that is how we landed with a theme for this month. The month of May is National Salsa Month, okay, which is super exciting. If you were with us for the past two classes, well, maybe not the past two, just yesterday perhaps, that we were talking about Cinco de Mayo because that was yesterday, of course, was Charlotte. I hope that you enjoyed that class yesterday. Maybe you celebrated last night. We made chicken quesadillas. We were going to go out, but then we were like, everybody probably goes out. So stayed home, made some chicken quesadillas. But what goes so great with all of those things, of course, would be salsa. And I love salsa. So I am personally happy that we are going to celebrate it all month long here in our Produce Spotlight class. And when Charlotte and Jenna and I were talking about this theme, we thought, hey, why don't we showcase some salsas with produce items that you wouldn't typically do in a salsa? Of course, I love the classics with tomatoes and all of that, but let's have some other produce items shine through with some different salsas. So we have some great recipes on tap for you this month. Today, I am going to be doing a kiwi salsa. Next week, Charlotte is going to be doing a tomatillo avocado salsa verde. And then following that, I'll be back again with a pineapple salsa, one of my favorite things to make. And then Jenna will finish up the month of May with a jicama grapefruit salsa. Very fancy. Okay, so lots of fun things on the way. If you're not already registered for these classes, make sure that you do so. Here is what I'm going to be making today, of course, from our savory site. It is a smoky kiwi salsa with grilled steak. All right, I've made some adjustments to it. You know, that's how I roll. And because recipes are always just inspiration and not rules, but here are the links for both Giant and Martin's for you to follow if you would like to follow that exact recipe. Totally cool if you want to. I didn't make that many changes. I'll explain what I did here as we go along. But here are the ingredients, okay? So we have two focus points for our recipe. We, of course, have the kiwi salsa, and then we have the steak. The big thing that I changed up was the steak. The recipe calls to grill it. Even though we are getting into grilling season, it's a little dreary out here in central PA. The rain is kind of hit or miss. I'll tell you guys a quick story. On Sunday, most of our soccer games are on Sunday, and we played soccer on Sunday. Trust me, it's so much easier to just play than to reschedule these club games. And it poured. I mean, it just poured. We were soaked. I was so worried that the girls would not be into it because they're, like at that age where you don't know if things are cool or not cool. But they loved it. Like they had so much fun. The girls who were subbing in were like begging me to go onto the field. It was a great time. We did end up winning, which is of course always a little fun little plus to that. But we were drenched. I'm sure you've probably been there if you're a sports parent or grandparent, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I just didn't feel like it was a grilling type day here in Central PA, but that's okay. And that's what I want to say to you. Maybe you don't have a grill, maybe the weather isn't right. Doesn't mean that you have to grill this steak. I already cooked mine on the stovetop because I wanted to give it some time to rest. But there's the information for the steak. I actually just did a little bit of salt and pepper. That's how I prefer my steak. If you want to spice it up a bit with the cumin or garlic powder, totally feel free to do so. But now on the flip side over here, the salsa, I'm doing that as is. You'll note that the recipe calls this a smoky kiwi salsa. We're not doing anything with smoke besides, I guess if you were grilling the steak, then you might have that smoky flair to it, but it makes it sound better, right? Like, doesn't it sound good? smoky kiwi salsa with grilled steak. It does. It pulls you in, all right? But you could maybe perhaps grill the kiwis. That is one fruit that I have not tried to grill, but I may now that I think about it. Not today though. Okay. Moving on, here are the directions. Like I said, I'm going to walk us through them here in a moment. I did not grill, made the steak already on the stove top. I'll tell you how I did that in a moment when we get there. But the highlight, of course, we are in our produce spotlight class. We are going to be focusing on the kiwi. Okay, that is our fun little unique item within this salsa. So let's chat about kiwis. Okay, it's one of my favorites. I've always loved kiwis. And originally, kiwis were actually known as Chinese gooseberries. Okay, that is where they originated from. And then they were brought over to New Zealand, I believe by a school teacher, I read. And they started growing them there like crazy, and they renamed them to kiwi or kiwi fruit after the kiwi bird. If you look up a kiwi bird, it looks so similar to like a little kiwi. It's brown and like it just looks like a little kiwi with a beak and wings. But it is a flightless bird, okay? It can't fly. And just a fun little story there about how the kiwi name came to be, okay? Now, this is actually something that I didn't know until a few years ago when I started working at Giant. Well, it's been more than a few years ago. I've been with Giant for a good bit now, but regardless, okay, you can find in our stores either green flesh kiwis or golden flesh kiwis. All right, growing up, I had only had the green ones. So I wanted to share the differences between the two. If you have not seen or had the golden yellow ones before, the green ones are green because they contain chlorophyll. Okay, that is the pigment in green fruits and vegetables that give them their color. Similar to like beta carotene giving carrots their orange color. Green things are green because of chlorophyll. So green kiwis have the chlorophyll. Of course, golden ones do not. The outside of a green kiwi is that fuzzy brown skin. For a golden kiwi, it's still that like light brownish color, but it's much smoother. Okay, we don't have that fuzz. In terms of the skin, you can eat the skin. A lot of folks on a green kiwi do not because of it being so fuzzy. And it's more usual that you find people eating the skin on a golden one. From a taste standpoint, the green ones are going to give you that tangy, sweet feel, where the golden ones are going to be more tropical. So kind of think like pineapple, maybe even a hint of strawberry. So they're going to be overall a bit sweeter than the green ones. Okay, we are going to use the green ones in our salsa today because when I think salsa, I prefer that like tangy sour note with a bit of a spice compared to something that's maybe overly sweet. Not that they're overly sweet, but I want like a tangy salsa. If you would prefer a sweeter salsa, go the golden flesh direction. Either is fine. Okay, how are we going to pick and store our kiwis? Of course, we want to look for ones that have an unblemished skin, whether they are green or golden. We want them to be slightly soft if we want a ripe kiwi, that is. Okay, so I think of them as being similar to picking an avocado, where you want it just to have a tiny give, kind of like a peach as well. Now, if they are not ripe, you're going to store them on the counter for about 2 to 3 days. To quicken that up, you could put them in a paper bag. If they are ripe already, like you pick them up from our stores, they're ready to go, then you're going to want to put them in the fridge and they should stay okay for up to almost 2 weeks. All right, so that is how we are picking and storing our kiwis. From a nutrition standpoint, okay, yes, I'm the dietitian. Why do we want to eat kiwis? Like most fruits and vegetables, kiwis have a lot of vitamin C. Okay, now a difference though between the green and the golden ones actually have 2 times the amount of vitamin C as the green ones. So if we're really wanting to get a lot of vitamin C, go the golden direction. But vitamin C, of course, is an antioxidant that does wonderful things for our body, most notably helping with our immune health, our skin health. If you were with me last week, I talked about this with strawberries, but basically, vitamin C is like our body's bodyguard to the outside. That's how it helps our immune health because it keeps the integrity of our skin, our tissues, all of those things that help block out germs. Vitamin C does. So we want to have vitamin C for that reason. Kiwis also can potentially really help with our heart health from a standpoint that they have a good chunk of both potassium and magnesium, which helps to balance out blood pressure as well as fiber. Now, here's a note of positivity for the green ones. The green ones are going to have more fiber than the golden ones. All right, that's why we eat both, right? That concept of eating a variety of colors because each color is going to provide us with something different. Fiber, of course, in a heart health standpoint, it's going to potentially help with things like our bad cholesterol and bringing those numbers down. And then the last one, this is the one that there's still ongoing research about, okay, but there are some studies that suggest it can help with sleep support. So kiwis contain serotonin, which is a precursor to melatonin. If you're familiar with some of those hormones that are in our body, both of those can help regulate sleeping patterns. So there's some studies that suggest eating a kiwi about an hour before bedtime. Others say that you need to have at least 2 to 3 kiwis a day, spread out throughout the day. I'm going to say take it with a grain of salt, but it's not going to hurt, right? So give it a try there with kiwis. Now, our salsa today is paired with that steak. Like I said, I didn't grill it. I cooked it on the stove top. I wanted to show you the steak that I'm using today is the one on the left. I decided to go with our Nature's Promise top sirloin steak. It's a good one over there. If you're ever questioning like picking out a good steak or whatnot, ask the meat manager at your Giant or Martin's. They'll be happy to help you out. So that's what I'm using today, but also I wanted to note that the pre-steak is still on sale, okay? I mentioned this to you guys last week during my my tulip class where I paired the tulips with a steak salad. So that promotion is still going on. So you can pick up the pre-steak. Both of these are sirloin. That's what I've used today. The Nature's Promise is an 8-ounce sirloin. So that's really technically 2 servings. Or you can go with the pre-steak, which is 2 5-ounce servings over there. Okay. So that is what I'm using in the way of that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that screen. I'm going to turn off this video and go over to my ingredients here because I've been talking so much per my usual. Now we need to make something, okay? I have my little Nomi here with me today in the back from our floral department. I've had him for a couple weeks, so the flowers are getting a little iffy, but he's still cute and adorable and they're still hanging on, right? So check that out if you haven't seen them in our floral department. They are fun. Don't forget Mother's Day is this weekend. I love flowers for Mother's Day, but anywho, let's get into making this kiwi salsa. All right. Now, recipe calls for 4 kiwis. I already have peeled and chopped up 3 of them and have them in my bowl here. But if you have never cut a kiwi before, I wanted to show you how it's done, or at least how I do it. I've seen different ways, which I'll explain then. Or if you are like me and sometimes like the convenience factor, you can get them pre-cut in our produce department too. So what I like to do is I like to cut off both ends so that way I can stand it up and it's not going to go like roly-poly all over the place. Okay, see? Cut off both ends, sit it there like that. Now, I'm gonna go ahead from here and do this how I would do like a pineapple, where I just go around and start to thinly slice off that skin, trying not to cut too much of the flesh off with it and trying just to get the skin. I suppose you could use a peeler, like a vegetable peeler as well if you want, but I think that this works fine. I have seen back in my like high school days, I had a friend who would cut the kiwi in half with the skin on and then use a spoon and like just scoop it out like the kiwi skin was almost like a bowl. Um, and that works well too. But for a recipe like this, I'm just gonna go ahead, peel it. If you leave some of the skin on there, no big deal, all right? It's just the salsa, it's gonna be fine. So peeled that skin off. I'm gonna lay it down like this and then just go ahead and make some slices. And then we will chop it up and add it to our other three in the bowl here. So just slices, and then I'm just gonna go 1 and 2 there. Okay, whoop, that guy slipped away. We'll put these in like that. One thing I love about kiwis, besides just, of course, how they taste, is they're so pretty, right? Like, how pretty is that? It's cool. Um, so almost done here. You can make them smaller if you want. It just depends on how big you want your pieces in your salsa, right? If you're doing this with chips, maybe you want it a little smaller. Doesn't matter. All right, so I've got my 4 kiwis in there. Now to that, we're going to add some red, AKA purple onion. You guys been hanging with me a while. You know I don't like to chop up an onion. This is what I buy from our produce department. It calls for a quarter of a onion, so I'm just gonna eyeball this. I just kind of like, I just add stuff in until it looks pretty. So we'll add about that and I'll give it a mix. The rest of what we're going to be adding to this is green. So at the end, if I feel like I need more purple, which I already kind of am feeling like I do, then I'll add more. Okay, I'm already gonna. Let's do that. Okay, set this aside. In terms of a salsa, purple, or excuse me, red onion is usually what you're going to see in recipes, okay? It just has that tartness, that crispness that you want in a salsa to make it bitey, compared to like a sweeter onion. So that's usually why you're going to see that in a salsa here. Now, if you want some heat, which I do, we're going to add a jalapeno, okay? The recipe calls for half of a jalapeno, which I'm good with. I don't want to go overly spicy. I cut off the stem, as you can see. Then what I do from here is just cut it down the middle. Okay, this is a big jalapeno, so I might not even use half. I also like to take these seeds out. If you like hot, leave the seeds in. I like hot, but I don't like overly hot. So hold on. Let me do this. Let me do this on a different plate so that way whoop, I can still use my cutting board for our cilantro here. Okay, I'm gonna just scrape these seeds out and I'm gonna scrape this like inner fleshy membrane. I'm gonna do the seeds first and then kind of cut this off. You can get in there and use your fingers, but I think I've told you guys before, I've had some bad experience with like jalapeno oil staying on my hands for days and really burning when I first started using them. So I tend not to do that. You could absolutely use gloves. All of that works too. So I'm just going to move some of this stuff over here so we have room then to keep going along. I have a couple seeds. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to go crazy there with the seeds. And I'm just gonna slice them and then we'll dice them. Slice and dice. And that actually might be enough for me there. Okay, let's move this back over. Gonna get my bigger knife here to chop these a little better. You could leave them as bigger pieces if you like. I prefer them to be smaller in something like this. Okay. All right. Gonna put them in. Get these guys. All right. Perfect. Okay. Now we need a little lime juice. Okay. About half of the lime. Now, a while ago, a couple months ago, I talked to Produce Spotlight all about limes. Okay, you see limes in our stores that are this darker green color as well as like a yellowish color. If a lime is more yellow, that lime is going to be sweeter in flavor. Okay, it's more ripe, and as they ripen, they're a bit more sweet. If it's darker green, it's going to be that tang. Okay, I would like the tang for my salsa. If you want some sweetness, go with a lighter yellow lime. I'm going to go with this one. Okay, so I'm just going to cut it in half here and squeeze that right in. You could use, if you didn't want to buy like an actual fresh lime and you have lime juice in your fridge, you could go that direction. I just think that nice fresh lime just really punches it up. But whatever you got is fine. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. Now, cilantro. Cilantro is one of those things that's iconic in salsa. Use as much or as little of it as you would like. I think the recipe calls for like a quarter of a cup. To me, it's similar to the red onion. I'm just going to add until I feel like it looks how I want it to look. All right, just a rough chop there. Let's mix this in and we'll see how it's looking. Okay, I think I'm going to be done with this. Hold on. Okay, let's bring this in. Take a look. Oh, I definitely need more purple in here. What do we think? Yes, more purple for sure. But it looks lovely. It looks so nice and fresh. It smells good. Okay, get some more purple in there. All right. Oh, that looks good. Okay, from here I have a little bit of cumin that you can add in. You could also put the cumin on the steak. Like I said, I didn't. I'm just going to add just a tad. I think it calls for about a quarter of a teaspoon to add to the salsa. So I did just a dash, just for a little flavor profile in there with these beautifully fresh fruits and veggies. Doesn't that look nice? So good. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and we will pair it with our steak. All right. So let me move this stuff out of the way here. My steak has been resting. Ta-da! Let me rinse my hands off. Okay, rinse my hands off, rinse my knife off. This is that Nature's Promise top sirloin, like I showed you a bit ago. Now, what I did, I just had salt and pepper on both sides, a little bit of oil on the pan. You could do the garlic and the cumin powder if you'd like. And I cooked this to medium. So for medium, that's how I like my steak. It's about 140 to 145. So we're still gonna see some pink in here. Cook it to well done over 165 if you would prefer. Totally up to you. We're gonna go ahead and slice this. We let it rest so that way those juices stay in there. Okay, should cut this more on an angle here. Oh, but it's looking good. It's looking good. Smelling good. Okay, now you wouldn't have to pair this with the steak if you would prefer not to. I think this would also go well with chicken. I think this would go well with salmon. I think this would go well with just chips, okay? But we're being fancy. We're turning this into a whole meal here with the steak. Okay, we're gonna fan this out. Put it on a plate if you want, whatever you want to do. I'm going to fan it out, leave it rustic on my my cutting board here. Okay. Oh, looks good. All right, like so. Hold on. Okay. Where'd my paper towel go? There we go. So we have our steak out like that. Now, let's top it with some salsa. Okay. Just gonna go right over top here in the middle. Oh, so good. How fun and fresh was that? And it didn't take long at all, right? Yes, I know I made the steak before you guys got on to class, but it whatchamacallit, you could have been cooking the steak while we were making the salsa too. So quick, so easy. Oh, it smells good. It looks good. I'm so pumped for this. Um, let's put our, hold on, let me put our lime here next to it. Just like that. Good, good. Excited to dig into this. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.